Hello, my name is Sumit and today I am going to show how to create a weather application. So in our tutorial we are going to follow this whole contents during the project creation. Firstly, I will briefly introduce our weather application, and so in introduction I will tell you about the features, about the total screens of our in-app, and which weather API we are going to use and why. So let's start the Genymotion here, and as you can see, Genymotion is set. So now I'm going to click on the weather app. This is asking for permissions. I will click it on allow for the location permission. This is the first screen, splash screen of our application. So this is the home screen of our app, and currently it's showing my current location weather. Currently my location is Sohana, Mohali, and it's showing the weather of my location. It's 37.6 degrees Celsius. It's the description of the weather, the cloud cover, the humidity, the wind speed, the sunrise and the sunset. So you can see here any weather information. Below there you can also see the next 5-day weather of my location. So there's a refresh button on the top, and anytime you want to refresh the weather you can click on it and it will give you the current weather, the current weather. Now I'm going to show the next screen functionality. So now next screen is manage locations. So I'm going to tap on it, and now the manage location is open. So what is the purpose of this screen? Basically you can add up to 10 location in this screen, and I will show you how we can do it. Like, I'm going to add a location. First location here is Delhi. So I'm using here the autocomplete API of Google. I will tell you during the project. And this is now first city is added. It's Delhi. So you can also delete it if you want later. And now I'm going back to home screen. So now you can see Delhi is added on the second tab. I can click on Delhi, or you can also swipe to right. So now this is Delhi temperature. Currently it's been 31 degrees Celsius. Feels like everything you need to know, the next 5-day weather of the Delhi. And now I'm going to navigate to the application last screen, that is settings screen. Now this is the settings screen. I'm going to tap. So now this is the settings screen, and as you can see there's a temperature. Currently it's in Celsius. You can change it to Fahrenheit. Time format, currently it's in 12 hour. You can change it to 24 hours. And there's a wind speed. Currently it's in kilometer per hour. So basically in settings region you can change the units of your home screen weather. Yeah, and now I'm going to click on meter per hour. So Now I'm going back, navigate to the home screen and check my updated weather. So now previously it was in Celsius and now it's in Fahrenheit, and the wind speed also changed to meter per hour, and date is also changed into 12-hour format. So this is basically a simple app, and I will tell you in whole tutorial. So now our next point is which weather API we are going to use and why. So I'm going to tell you which API I'm going to use. In our project I'm going to use API XU. Why API XU? It's showing here the free, fast, simple and fully managed. As I search about the weather APIs, there is many popular APIs on the Google. You can search like the Open Weather API. It's been very popular. But why I like API XU? API XU have more weather units rather than the Open Weather API. I like the response structure of the API XU because it has been more detailed response in the API XU API, and you can get the response in XML and JSON format, and we are going to use JSON format here, and that's how we are going to use this API. And in the coming videos I'm going to show how we are going to use this API for weather. Thank you. Hello, my name is Sumit, and in this video tutorial I'm going to tell you about the project creation, that how we are going to set up the API following the MVP design pattern and completing the two screens, the splash screen and the home screen. So firstly I will tell you how do I set up the project. So I will open the Enrol Studio and clicking on start a new project. So clicking on next, selecting the empty activity, then the next. Now giving the name of the application here, I'm typing the weather application. This is the package name. Why package name is necessary? First, because the package name is what our app belongs to. Like when we are going to upload on a Play Store, that what matters. Firstly, you can search the application with the package name when you have no downloads or something that your app will recognize. This is the package name that you have to use. So next is save location, and where you want to save the project. So I'm using the F, and the name is F weather application. Last one is the language I have to select, Kotlin or Java. This project I am going to create in Java, so I select Java. The minimum API level version is, I'm selecting here the 5.0 because it is the highest running on devices, like 85% is running on 85% of devices. So I'm going to click on finish, and it will going to set up the project. So now you can see that project is set up, and you can see the two classes here. One is Java, one is XML file. So now the app is the main module of our application, our project we call it. App is the main module. We have two module, app and the Gradle scripts. So firstly we are going to the app module. Now in app module we have three modules, sub modules you call it. Or first one is the manifest. Manifest is the root of our project. Basically any screen, any activity or any permission when we give to the application is going to register here. Like currently there is a main activity is created, so it's been the main activity as intent filter. Intent it filter tell us that this is the main, and the launcher activity is currently the main activity. So now move on to the next Java module having three packages: Android test and the main package. So both this Android test and the test are basically for testing purpose, unit testing we call it. We discuss it later. Now we are going to open the main class. This is the first class. We said what is main activity. Main activity is a class which one is the firstly compiling by the compiler. So this is the first class, and its layout is activity main. You can check that here. So now we are going to the resource package, RES package. So this resource package also have some modules like drawable, any image, any vector we are going to use in the project, we are going to save it here or paste it here in the drawable folder. Layout, any XML file we are going to as a screen, as a view in our project, so it belongs to the layout module. So what is mip-app? Mip-app is basically small icons, we call it the app icons, any app, round icons, or the launcher icon belongs to this category, the mip-map. Last one is the values. Like values can be colors, any color we are going to use in our project, strings, and any string. Basically we have not to hard code it the string. Anyway we want to use the string, we have to declare it in the strings.xml first and get the reference from here. So it will make it better for the coding purpose, for the better coding purpose. And this is the styles, the app theme we call it. We are going to use any themes or something like that, we can declare in the styles. We are also using this so later. So now the app module is complete. Now the Gradle scripts. Basically there is root of project module of build.gradle, and other one is the app module. So in app module we can set the compile SDK version, we are going to compile by which version, and the build tool versions, the minimum SDK version we are going to use. Basically dependencies, any library, any dependency implementation we are going to use in our project, then we have to declare it in the app module, the Gradle app module. So, and this is the build.gradle. This is basically the whole project root build, like which build Gradle version currently we are going to use in our project. So now we are going to setting up the module for the MVP design pattern. So let's start this. Firstly, what is MVP? The question is MVP. Basically MVP is a derivative of MVC, model view controller, and model view controller is also a design pattern, coding design pattern. We use it, and as a default for Android, MVC is following automatically when we use the Android. So what is MVP? MVP is basically a coding design pattern which helps developer to making the ease of code, like we can optimize the code with that. So it will be helpful for other developers. If I created the project with using the MVP design pattern, it will definitely decrease the line of code, we call it, and it will be easier to understand to other developers. So it will clean up the code basically. So now what is MVP? In MVP we have, like in the view I have a button called login. So when I click on the button, user action perform. Presenter basically is a mediator between the model and the view. So presenter is where the API is written and the callbacks are getting in the presenter. So when I click on the button, presenter hit the API and check for the observer that is on error or success. When the API hits, it gets the response. So when the response gets from the API, it's sent to the model, like it will update the model, and when the model change, it tells the presenter to that model is upgraded, and it get the callback on the on success or on error and redirect it to the view. So view get the message that you have login successfully, or login has been unauthentication or something message you have to show. That is how MVP is going to work. So these are the some points, like view mode is separated from model, the presenter is the mediator, as I tell you, between the model and view. Basically it makes it easier to create the unit test. Like I'm going to show how we can say that how it's easier to create the unit test, and it will be basically multiple parameter for the complex views. If we have the complex view, if the presenter makes the view handle, we can create a different presenters for the views, listen the user actions, and model update model view as well. So I'm going to here use the MVP here and set up the MVP first. So I'm going to create a package here. Firstly, I'm thinking in mind that what is important for us. Like I'm going to create a splash screen first. So in splash screen, it's a view basically. So I'm creating a package here, calling the name view. So in the view, I'm going to use two things. One is activity and other one is fragment. So both I'm using in this project. As when I get the UI of any application, we definitely can think about that where we are going to use activity and where we are going to use fragments. So in this project, I'm going to use fragment as well as the activity is necessary for the fragments. So I'm going to create a package here, another package in the view called activity. So if it's not visible because currently it's inside the view, so I'm creating the another package here. And named fragment. So now in my view I have two packages, activity and the fragment. Firstly, I will cut the main activity and paste it in the activity module, or you can call it package. So now in the activity I have the class main activity. Firstly, I'm going to rename it the base activity because I'm going to use as a parent class called the base activity here, because every activity I'm going to use in our project is basically extended by the base activity, because in base activity I'm going to write down some methods like the progress bar, hide progress bar, show progress bar, which going to be used in our whole project, and I don't have to write again and again. So I'm going to declare every necessary methods in the base activity class. So I'm going to declare at base activity here. So this is the base activity. So for the base activity, I do not need to give the layout because I only use the methods, and any activity that has been extended by the base activity has its own layout. So I can also remove this on create, and so I will write down some methods here later which I'm going to use laterly. So I'm creating the another package. Firstly, I'm going to use our splash screen. Firstly, this is a splash screen, so I'm going to firstly create the splash screen, and so making the project first, making the module first for the splash. So in the activity I'm going to create another package called splash, and going to create a new Java class called splash activity. So I'm going to extend it from the base activity and press the control here for overriding the method, like I'm going to override the onCreate method here, and setting the view here r.layout dot activity splash. I'm pressing the alt enter here and it will automatically create the layout for activity splash. So I'm hit the enter and it will ask for the root element. I here describing the relative layout because I'm going to use relative layout as a element. So now you can see the XML file of splash screen. So I'm using relative layout. Basically you can see that in our app, weather app, we have the image of animated image. This is called GIF image firstly in the splash screen. So I'm going to use image view here. So image view is written here, so I'm going to give the ID like image view splash. So naming convention is important, so whenever giving the IDs, make it clear that you are going to use image view. I am using the naming convention as image view splash, so it does not difficult me to later that which content, which resource I am going to use. So it will easier to pick up the name and use it as you want it. So now I'm going for image. So I'm using the weather GIF image, copy the image, and as I tell you earlier, I'm going to paste it in drawable, not drawable v24 but in the drawable folder, and press OK. So now you can see my image is now in the drawable folder, so I can use it in the image view source and the drawable weather GIF. So now put it in the center, so I will use here center in parent. So now my image is in center, but I want to use it as the whole. So firstly I will copy the color of that image and put it in the colors. So color, I want to name it as color background splash. So I'm using the color here, the blue color. I have the color codes, so you can also pick the color easily because there is software color pick. If you want to choose the color, then simply go to the screen and click on any box. This is a color pick, and you can see the code of with a hash like 05234B. So I am using my color here 05234B. Oh sorry, insert is pressed 05234 and B. So now my color is color is set up here, so I can use it in my splash screen. Control Alt Shift L, what makes you is structurize your code, and I am here using the background, add color, background splash. So now you can see the whole screen looks like similar. So no, it's not look like the image is small or something. So now my image view is done, my XML is done for the splash screen. So but this is a GIF, and image view does not play you GIF simply, like it's only show the image as PNG spotted, or you can also use a JPG for the background images, but you can't play the GIFs in the image view. But there is a one library called Glide, which is popular among in the Android for the networking library images, network imaging library, which can play the GIFs easily. So I'm going to use that library, the Glide. There are two networking libraries very popular in Android. First is the Picasso and second one is the Glide. So basically there is a Glide. Picasso does not play the GIF files, as well as in the Glide you can play the GIF files and load the network images in your image view. So as I tell you earlier, if I want to implement anything and integrate any library, we are going to implement in the app Gradle module. So you can get the Glide easily from any website, like if you want to Glide library Android. So now if Glide open, now it will tell you here that you have to just implement these things in the dependency. So I'm copy the both lines and paste it here. So now I'm going to click on sync now, and it will implement the Gradle files in my project. So it's almost done. So now I'm going back to the splash screen. As you can see, now it's red to blue, and that makes that it will get the reference here. So now next important thing we are going to use in this project is butter knife library, or you can call it butter knife injection. What is butter knife? Basically, when we create an XML, we give the IDs, like it will identify the resource here, like this is the image view content, and I want to identify, I have to write down the ID in the splash activity class. So do it manually, it will take time, and that's why I'm going to use butter knife, because butter knife automatically injects the IDs and giving the variable name automatically by just following the two steps. So firstly I'm going to implement the butter knife here also, which is important. So also going to use butter knife Android. So now butter knife is that what you can see, it automatically gets the IDs for you. I'm going to copy the both lines dependencies and paste it below. Clicking on sync, it will take some time to sync up with the project. It will give some error, something like core component factory. So it says manifest merger failed, it means that you are going something used previously, but now this have its own components, like butter knife has its own components, and it will making the issues while merging the both. So I'm going to click on the manifest. Clicking on merge manifest, it will tell you the problem, merging error, and it will tell you the suggestion also. Click on the add to replace, and now going to check it again, is it okay or not. Firstly clean the project. So after cleaning the project, rebuild the project. So it will tell you if problem exists still. If it successfully built it, then our issue is solved. So now it's showing another error of multiple build failures, and it will showing something AAPT errors and processes unexpectedly exit. When you see this type of errors like AAPT errors issue, and so when you get see these errors like AAPT errors, this means that you have something wrong with the project Gradle. So this will make a issue here. So basically, as the previous project, I am setting the stable version of the Gradle is 3.3.2. so I'm going to put it here. If you get any error, this kind of error in the latest Android Studio, change it to stable version, and the most stable version is, as a developer I've seen, is 3.3.2. It's not that earlier, but it's the better and the stable version. So go for the 3.3.2 if you get the error, otherwise go with the version you have currently, and because it will get the error solved by this changing. Now you can click on again build, and it's indexing. So now click on the build and rebuild project. So it will tell you again that if there any problem persists again, so you can take any action or something, you have to do it for the issue. I'm showing issues here because everyone needs to be understand when the developer going to, there is another error called the manifest merger error with the multiple errors. Now it's the manifest again showing the merger error to replace specified line at 6 for attribute component factory. So this error basically coming from the butter knife. So what is the alternate of this? If I tell you that some of the new version creating the issue here, like app component factory is the new module here for the butter knife, so I'm going to change it here with the previous version or something like that. The previous version of the stable version you can use here, which will not have app component factory. This is the module added lastly in the 10 point version, so I'm switching back to the stable version here. It's 8.5.1, which is mostly I used 8.5.1. So you have to know the compiling error, what issues you have to be faced while creating the projects. This is basically the main errors. User can get the runtime errors solved easily, but when he stuck on the compile time error, it will take a day or a 2 day or a 3 day. I see a developer that facing a issue around a week, the compiling issue. So what compiling issue is referring and why is it happening? So you have to be check the compiling issue clearly, so it doesn't waste your time and it doesn't affect your project timing. So it would be helpful if you check the compiling error better, and it would be solved as soon as possible. So this is it for the video, and in the next video I will tell you about the usage of butter knife and the glide. Thank you. Hello, my name is Sumit, and in this video I'm going to show you about the implementation of glide and the butter knife, and also the implementation of location service in the project. So let's start the video here. So first of all, I'm going to tell you about the butter knife. So what is butter knife basically? Butter knife is a view binding tool which is basically used for save the typing of repetitive lines of codes. So I'm going to show you about how it will work. So firstly, like you can see that there is XML, activity XML, splash XML, and image view is used here. So this image view has ID. If I want to use that image view in my activity, I have to use this ID and initialize my image view with this ID, like image view splash, and then find view by ID r.id dot image view splash. So this way, sorry, there is double equals to, so this way I have to initialize my image view. But if there is a multiple elements, like it have more than 10 or 15 elements in my XML, then I have to write down the same XML, same line of code again and again. So it will take my time to changing the reference name and the IDs, and it will also increase my LOC, the line of code, and takes my time. So that's why I'm going to use butter knife here, and I'm going to show you. It's a simple way, it's a simple thing that you can use butter knife. Like just you have to add the Gradle implementation in the Gradle file here, as I show it in earlier video, and do it this way. Like just click on the XML reference, there is activity, right click on the reference, and you can see there is a generate, and click on the generate, and there is a generate butter knife injections. Click on that. So you can see there is one element in my layout, image view, and its ID is image view splash. You can also override the on click method here, and you can type here the variable name you want to choose. You can choose any variable name, but I really follow the case sensitive or naming convention here. It's not case sensitive, but you have to follow the camel case for naming convention that I'm going to follow in my whole project this. So click on confirm. So now you can see that my image view is binded with its ID. So now I can easily use my image view splash with glide. So now what is glide basically? Glide is basically a loading library, image loading library, and which is basically used for the loading the networking images in our image view. So it is basically maintained by the Google, and I'm going to use glide here because there is two major purposes of glide. There is a Picasso, also very popular image loader library in Android, but our Picasso glide has basically two major functionalities. First one is that it will cache the images, cache the network images, and also the second one is the loading the GIF files. So caching, basically if I load the any image from the URL, it will after it will load first time, then it will storing the cache of that image, and the next time when I see the same image, it will take less time because glide storing the cache of image view and show it as a minimal time, as in minimal time. So that's why glide is more popular than Picasso. And here glide is also can use for loading the GIFs. So I have GIF file here in image activity splash layout, so I'm using glide here. So I have just to write down the one line here. I'm going to type glide dot with the context, this is reference, and then load my dribble GIF into my target is image view splash. So now you can see that glide is loading my image view, my GIF into my image view. So now next thing is that you can see there is a highlighted splash activity is highlighted. It's saying that this is not registered in the manifest, so I have to register this first, and I want to make this as a main activity, as a launcher activity. So I'm going to manifest file and changing my base activity as a main launcher to splash activity. So now splash activity is my main and launcher activity and also registered in the manifest file. So now you can see highlight, it's removed the highlight splash activity here. So now I'm going to run this code, and my mobile is connected. So now I'm going to run and see the result. So now you can see there is GIF and it's running. So now our glide is showing the GIF image. Now the next thing is the toolbar here, the title bar. You can see the title bar here. So in the splash, basically I do not need, in the actual app as you can see there is no title bar here. So how do I'm going to remove that? Simply just navigate to resource module and then the values and the styles, because there is a theme implemented there. You can see there is an app theme.appcombat.lite, and there is the action bar. So I have to just remove the no action bar, so it will remove the title bar. And now I'm going to run it again. Now you can see there is no title bar, so our splash screen view is complete. So now what's the next task? So our next task is giving the permission of locations, so and using the location service. So now first of all I'm going to use the location services here, and now I'm using my GPS here. So this app is based on the location GPS that it fetch our current location weather automatically. So that's why I need the user location here. So after the marshmallow, like in the 26 SDK version, 23 SDK version, there is Google in changes in a Google permissions policy that you have to get the user input when you have to get the permission. Like if you want to use the camera of user, like I have button on off camera and I have going to click on the camera before the 23 SDK version, before the marshmallow, we have only to type here the user's permission and type the camera here, and that's enough for us. So it automatically open up the camera. But now after the 22 SDK API level, and there is a user access requirement is necessary, that user have to give the permissions manually, that we have to show the pop-up that this app wants to use your camera and this app needs your location permission. So user have to give the permission firstly. So now I'm going to here use two permissions. One is access find location for getting the location, and second one is there's two locations permissions. I'm going to use find location and the access course location. So now I have to do this thing. Now its user's permission is done. Now I'm going back to splash activity here, and so now I'm going to use base activity class for the permissions. Like if I need permissions in any of the activity, I have to just call this method. That's why I'm going to base activity here, because this is the parent activity of every classes, every another class I'm going to use in the project. So I have to create here one method for checking the permissions here, public void check permissions, and permissions is multiple, so can be multiple. So I'm going to make the array of string permissions. I'm passing this parameter, the string array. Now I'm going to write down here, I'm checking initializing the permission needed variable. So the initialization value of permission needed is 0. So now I'm going to use the check that I told you earlier, that the 23 of the SDK version, the API level versions after the 23 or equals to 23 is asking for the permissions. So now I'm going to make a check here, build dot version dot SDK int greater than equals to 23. Then you have to just make the loop of the array, permissions array. I less than permissions, I spelled it wrong here, it's permission dot length, and it's I++. So now loop is running, so I have to just check the result of permission, that permission is granted or not. Result context combat dot check permission, self permission, this and the permission one by one. So permission, so if result does not equals to package manager dot permission granted, then permission needed is incremented. So now my check permission in method is written here. So now I'm going back to splash activity. Here I'm going to back to splash activity and using the permission here. So here, as you can see that their if result does not equals to granted, then it will be greater than 0. That means permissions is not given and I have to ask for the permissions. If permission is not granted, then I have to ask for permissions. If permission is greater than 0, then I will ask for the permissions. So I'm going to, in the splash screen, and calling the method here check permission here, and sending the array of permissions. So I'm making the array of permissions above string, going to declare private string array permission. So which permissions I needed here? One is access course location, and the second one is access file location. So both permission is done. So I have to send this permission array in my check permission method here. So if check permission is greater than 0, then what I have to do is, so now I'm going to ask for the permissions, activity.request permission and context and the permission array here. So permission array, I have to send permission array, yeah, this one is fine. Now the request code I needed here, so I can give any request code, private int location code. So I can type 1 2 3 here. I have to, this is a constant value, so I'm going to write in upper cases location code. So now location code is 1 2 3. You can type any location code here, it's just for verification. So now it will ask the permissions here, so let's check the permissions here. So now I'm going to run the project again. So now you can see there is a pop-up, allow weather application to access the device location. So a user can allow. Now we have the permission of location of user. So now that's the purpose of this permissions, and I'm currently testing on my Android Pie, so it will ask for the permissions. So now we have the permissions of location. Now the next thing is we have to enable the GPS also, because without enabling the GPS you can't get the location of the user. So this is also important. This is two ways of getting the location of GPS. Like there's a two way, like first, if I send the user to the settings page and give him a message that enable your GPS location, and the second method is giving a Google Play Services pop-up that this app is going to enable your GPS. Do you want to enable your GPS? OK, and cancel. So I prefer to use the Google Play Services dialog here. So now I'm going to use Google Play Services dialog rather than going to settings. But now I'm going to create another method here. display location enable dialog. So now I'm creating a method here, and now what we needed is the location, Google location services. Hello, my name is Sumit, and in this tutorial I'm going to tell you about the implementation of Google Play Services location, and by using the Gradle library of Google Play Services. So let's start the video here. So basically this is the method. In the previous video I create that for the showing the dialog of Google Play Services location, that will when the user GPS is disabled or not being on, so we are going to check that first, and then we are going to show that dialog that please enable, can you please enable your GPS location, and if user clicks on OK, then it automatically enable the GPS rather than going to settings in the phone settings and turn on the GPS. So firstly I'm going to, so now I'm going for the location services here. You can see this is what I going to use in my project. So I'm going to implement this location service. So now it's been add tools dot replace component factory to override. So it's been collapsing with my Android support library because new version have same component factory feature, so we are not going to use that. And as for the butter knife, like we are doing, making the previous version stable version, so the stable version of Google Services location is currently 16.0. Now it's being perfectly synced up. So now I'm going to splash activity back and going for here the code which will display our GPS enable dialog. So now I'm using here location setting request. Basically this is the request process, and of builder, it's basically a builder is a dialog, like we are going to show an dialog here. So we are going to location setting request builder, initializing its value and going for new location setting builder. So now dialog is initialized. So now what I'm going to add in this dialog is, firstly I'm going to add the location request, because this dialog contains the location request, and now I'm going to create new location request here and going to set priority that I need high accuracy GPS. So I'm going to set priority of location request is high accuracy. So now my add location request is done. So builder going to show always true. Then I'm going to create this builder with M location setting request. So now I'm going for creating the private location setting request. Here going to settings request. So I am using M that annotates it's a private variable. So now I'm going to M location setting request equals to builder.build. So it will turn into this. So now my builder is ready. Now I'm going to get the callbacks. So I want to know that the GPS is enabled or GPS is disabled, GPS is in what condition that. So now I'm going to add callbacks here. So firstly I'm going for settings client. So I am going to create settings client here. So I'm settings client, and now I am here. I'm settings client equals to using location services, get setting client and the context here. So now using this setting client I can get the callbacks. So that's why I'm using the setting client, that what callbacks is giving me. So I am now going for callbacks, like firstly I am going to check the location settings here, adding the location setting request. This is the main thing. Now I'm going to add the listeners here. Firstly I'm going to check the add success listener, new success listener, and after that I'm going to add failure listener, and at last I'm going to add on cancel listener. After that, now I have listener setups. So whenever first of all the GPS is disabled, so it will go into the on failure, not in on success, because on success only call when the GPS is enabled. So what I am doing here is checking the status in the failure, that if it is disabled and I need the GPS and GPS is available to use, so I can get the I can show the dialog here. So now in the on failure I am going to work here. Firstly I get the status code, that what condition in GPS is. So I am going to first get the status code here, and it will be by API exception. It's a Google Play Services method. Now e dot get status code. So now I have status codes. Now firstly I'm going to check with switch case, that which case is in it. So switch and the status code here. Now I have two cases. One is that my GPS is in perfect condition and it's only required, so status code. So now this is the solution required is for that GPS is available to use, and I need to just show the dialog here. Now second case, if GPS is not working correctly and not available, so it will unavailable, so break. I can only use log here because I don't want to work, I just want to check that GPS location settings are disabled. Unavailable. So now in the if GPS is currently disabled or off, so now I'm going to ask to the user that please enable your GPS, and when user clicks on OK, it will automatically enable your GPS. So now I'm going to here write down the code for dialog, and now this is the resolve API exception. This is what Google Play Service is required for the dialog showing. Now I'm going for showing the result like this. and it's need activity and result. So I'm going to take any integer value here, request GPS 456. So now I'm going to use this code that it gives me callback for that it's activity and it's splash activity dot this, because it need the class reference, so it's asking for unhandled exception. Now I'm going to use try catch here. So now my code is done. If this is going to show the dialog of the GPS, and this is the callback method, request GPS number. So now I'm going to run the project and check that it will show the dialog or not. So now you can see that this is the Google Play Services location dialog. To continue, turn on device location which use Google Services location. So when you press the OK, firstly you can see there is no location enabled currently, so I'm going to click on OK, and after that you can see now GPS is enabled automatically without navigation to the settings. So now our code is working fine. So now what I'm going to do is getting this callback, like if user press on no thanks, I don't want to use GPS, but you know that our app is basically use location and we need the GPS enable. If there is no GPS, then our app is not working. So we are telling the user that we are sending the user in the settings and going to make manual enable the GPS on. So I'm getting the callback first. Now when I use this line means there is a start resolution for result. I want this line's result. So whenever this line is written over there, like start resolution for result, it will sending me the callback on overriding method on activity result. So I'm going to override here by pressing the Control O, and then you can search on activity result. So now I'm going to use this request code. So this request code, if switch request code. So now I'm using the case here. So now I'm going to use two cases here. First case is result OK, and the second case is result cancel. Result cancelled. So it will tell me that what user selects currently. So now if user clicks OK, then I am going to send him in the home screen. So now here this new method is created. So now I'm going to navigate to home screen. What if user is cancelled? So if user is cancelled, I'm going to send him in the settings page. So now I'm going to create a method here. enables open GPS enable settings. So now I'm going to use implicit intent here, which is used for sending my application to the phone default applications. Like now I'm going to send him the settings screen, so I'm using intent, new intent, and the settings screen. Oh, sorry, I used wrong settings here. I am going to use settings of provider and use here action location, and I'm going to use action location here. Now action location and starting the activity, start activity intent. So now if user cancel the GPS enable dialog, then I am going to send him on the settings page for enabling the GPS. If it's press the hook OK, then I am going to navigate him to home screen. So here I am also going to not use this method again and again every time. If my GPS is already enabled, then I do not need to call this method. So I do not need to call this method. So firstly I'm going to create a method to check that GPS is enabled or disabled currently. So it's basically tell me the GPS status. So if it's enabled, then it's return true, else it's return false. So is GPS on? So now I'm going to use location manager here. Location manager here, and get system service. This is basically a system service of location service, and it will tell me the location manager is provider enabled, and if provider, now I need the GPS. If I need the network provider, then I can call the network provider, but I'm using GPS here, so now I'm going to use GPS provider. So now if GPS is on, then I do not need of this dialog. So if GPS is on, so I'm going to use false. If GPS is not enabled, then I'm going to use this dialog and show on the user screen. I'm going to use log here, log.d GPS success, which will tell me that what actually happened here, and GPS is cancelled. So now my home screen is almost complete, and now I have every method written here. Now navigate to home screen. Method is blank currently because I do not create here any home activity, so I'm going to create a new home activity here. So I'm going to create a package, new package with the home name. So now package is created, and I'm going to create a Java class of home activity. So now home activity is created. I'm going to extend it to base activity which I created as a parent activity. So now it's not registered, so I'm going to register Alt plus enter, then add activity to manifest. So currently I'm going to use overriding the onCreate method and setting its view is default dot activity main. So now my home activity setup, so I can use in my splash screen here. So I'm going to start activity new intent and reference of this class, then to home activity class. So now I can move to no home activity class here, but actually I want to use, like if I need splash screen, then I want to run this splash screen for a limit of time, that after a limit of time it will navigate directly to the home activity. So now I'm going to use a handler here, basically a thread which will run for the 2 seconds, and after 2 seconds it will redirect to the home activity. So now I'm going to create a handler here. Handler is basically a thread, so it will wait for 2 seconds and create a process, execute a process inside it. So post handler.post, I want to delete this post for 2 seconds. Now I'm going to create a inside run method, override then run method, and then I'm going to use here the 2 seconds here, so 2000 milliseconds, and now I'm going to break this. Now I'm going to cut this code and put in the run method. So this is not working because it gets a reference of this thread, so splash activity dot this. So now you can see now my navigate to home screen method is created, and now it will navigate to home screen if GPS is enabled. So now I'm also going to use, if GPS is false, then show the dialog button. So it will go into this method if GPS is disabled, and here I'm asking for the callback request GPS, that start resolution for result. Now on activity result is called, so it will going in the result OK, and if result OK, then I am going to navigate to home screen, and if result cancel, then automatically the GPS settings is going to show my GPS settings screen, and user can manually enable the GPS. So now I'm going to use the method here. If GPS is false, then display enable location, else navigate to, if already on, then navigate to home screen. So now my splash activity is almost completed. Only the one thing is pending is that in my project I am going to use the location service, so I have to implement the location service also, but it's being a service, so I am going to talk about this in the next video and tell you the whole process, how I am going to use the location service in our project, and what is the usage, what is the mainly usage of the location service class, and why we are going to use the location service, and I will tell you in the next video. Thank you.
Hello guys, my name is Sumit, and today I am going to show that how we are going to use location service class in our application. So why we are going to use location service? Basically, location service is used for getting the latitude and longitude of our current location, and the latitude and the longitude, the coordinates we call it, is important to our app is because we are going to use our current location, and we are going to use weather API that needs latitude and longitude of a current location. So that's why it is very important for our application. So now I'm going to show that how we are going to use this service. So first of all, we are going to create a package here, and named it is services. So now our new package is created. So now I'm going to create a service class here and named it as app location service. So now I'm going to implement the location service here. So its name is location listener, so I'm going to use location listener here, not by the Google but my phone location listener. So now it's saying that you have to implement its method because it's an abstract or the interface class. So you know about the interface and abstract, you have to implement its method. So now I am going to press Alt Enter and then press Enter. So the overridden methods are the on location change, the status change, and the provider enable or disable. So I'm going to use this methods literally. So now my methods are created here, implemented here. So now what I'm going to here create is the constructor here. So as you know, the constructor is the same name of the class name. So I am going to create a constructor, default constructor here, naming and passing the context, means the reference, the class which are going to use this. So context, I'm going to pass import class and then context. So now my default constructor is created, and now what I need here, firstly I'm going to declare a context here, private, and the context and the context here. So now the class we are going to use is this dot context, passing the class context basically, and give the value to mContext, so I can use the mContext in my whole application service class. So now I'm going to firstly use the location manager here. Location manager. So why we are going to use location manager, because I'm going to check that location manager is giving me network location or the GPS location. That's why I'm going to use location manager, because of the usage of the location manager I can get the GPS provider. So now I'm going to use location manager, and firstly I'm going to initialize the location manager here, and by getting the mcontext.get system service, because it's a system service, and going to pass here the location service. So I need a location from my location manager, and now what I'm going to do is getting my GPS. So first of all I'm going to set the criteria here, that the criteria means that which GPS is I'm going to use, which location manager I'm going to use, either the phone service, either the network provider, or either the GPS. So network provider, firstly I'm going to check which one of them is currently active. So firstly I am going to check for the network enabled. So now I'm going to check for the network enabled by the location manager dot is provider enabled, and my provider is firstly is network enabled, so location manager dot network provider. So it returns me true if network is enabled network, so I can get the location from the network provider, and I'm going to use both is GPS enabled. So location manager dot is provider enable, but this time for the GPS provider. Now I have both values like the network enabled and the GPS enabled, which are going to tell me that which network location I can use. So now I'm going to use the criteria here. The what is going to criteria is doing. Criteria is basically like what location criteria I want to use, that I want the accuracy fine, so I have to set the criteria. So I'm going to show that how I'm going to use this criteria here. I can initialize here, and now first of all I'm going to check that if is network enabled or any of them is enabled. So accuracy I have to set criteria dot accuracy fine. So now I'm going to check this two. Basically I'm using two locations here, accuracy fine and the accuracy coarse. So basically accuracy fine is used by the GPS if meanwhile that GPS can give you the location exactly, while the network not. So that's why we use them. In the previous video you can see manifest two permissions, and the fine and the coarse. For the GPS, if is GPS enabled, then I'm going to use criteria set accuracy fine, and if is network enabled, then I'm going to set criteria coarse accuracy as a coarse. So now my criteria thing is done. So I'm going to use a string here, private string and provider. So now using the string for getting the value provider, so I'm going to use location manager dot guest best provider. So it tells me that which one is going to give me exact location. So I'm going to use criteria and enabled true. So it tells me that which criteria is this GPS giving me location, is it network giving me location. So provider get the value of the best provider who is going to giving me the location. So now next point is I'm going to use that a method. I'm going to create a method which returns me basically the last location of my mobile. Like whenever I turned on the GPS, if it's not getting the current location, then it give me the last known location. So now I'm going to create a method here, provide void get last location. So now my method is created. So I'm going to use fused provider service. What is fused? fuse basically used for the last known locations basically, because the fuse provider client get the location that previously I used, that the last known by my device. So I'm using here the fused location provider client and initializing its value with the location services dot get fuse location and passing the context here. So now I'm going to use here fuse location client dot get last location. So get last location, but I'm going to use a callbacks here, the same callbacks. So add on success listener now on success is overridden here, and I'm going to also use add failure listener. So new on failure listener. So failure listener is going to give me exceptions. I'm going to print track trace what is going to say that permission have to be checked by this method. So I am going to add a permission check here. So now it automatically checks the permission is given, then it give me the location. So now I'm going to use here this location also. So this is basically tell me the current location or the last location also. So if it gets the current location, it give me the location of current, as wise it's also give me the previous last known location. So now I'm going to use this location. This location basically gives me the coordinates like the latitude and the longitude. So the latitude and the longitude is going to use in the whole app. So I'm not going to declare the latitude longitude here. I'm going to create a app class here, which is the app extended by the application class. So I'm going to use here create a my app, and this is the basically the application class, and it extends the application class. So this is class. What is application class? The application class is running whenever my application is launched. Like it is basically a process whenever the application launched is launched with that. So I'm going to firstly register the application class here in the application tag. So I'm going to use the name of my app. So now I register the my app here. So whenever my application launch, the my app class is firstly who compiled and run with the all activity class. So now I'm going to use the public static. So latitude give me the double coordinate, so I'm going to use double, and latitude here. Also going to use longitude. So now my both value is declared here. So now I'm going back to the application service here. So in the application service, what I'm going to do is, if location, sometimes location must be null, so I will made a safe check here. So it does not equals to null, then my app, so it's a static variable, I can use it directly, latitude location dot get latitude, and my app dot longitude location dot get longitude. So now my latitude and the longitude, whenever I launch this service, it automatically put it in there. This is also the onLocation method is overridden whenever I'm going to use the location listener. So this method is run basically, but it will run a little better whenever your location is changed, like I'm moving around and my location is changed. So this also gives me the latitude of location. If I am traveling, this method is going to call after every minimum 5 seconds. So I'm also going to use my latitude longitude here, which gives the perfect weather of the location. Likewise, I'm traveling while opening the app and the location is changing, so whenever you press the refresh button from home, then it gives you the current location weather. So location does not equal to null. I'm going to copy the above method here and type the same thing. So now I'm almost done with my application class. So now I'm going to use this method here, and now I can get the location here, the last location. So now if I want to stop this service, then I also going to use here stopping service. Like nowadays Android is so much compact operating system, like if I am going to kill the app, it automatically kills the service too and not running service in the foreground. But for the previous versions of Android, there is service like location services are running in the background even if the app is killed, so it consumes the battery. So for that sake, I'm going to use the stop location service method here. Private, not, I'm going to use public because I'm calling it from my main class, that is the home class. Void stop GPS service. So if location manager does not equal to null, then I'm going to use location manager dot remove updates. And passing the context of this class. So stop the service from this class. So I will use it in my home class literally. So now my location listener service is implemented. So now I'm going to use this class whenever my splash screen is active, and it gives me error somewhere. Yeah, here's error. So I find it. Now I'm going to press right here the M context, not writing the line horizontally long, so it will be difficult for getting the errors. So I'm compiled, and now the issue is gone. So I'm going back to the my splash activity here, and now I'm going to call my application service class. So firstly I'm going to use public static application service class because I'm going to use in my whole application, so I'm going to use as static here. So I do not need to initialize it again and again, because splash screen is the first screen going to launch, and it launches every time when the splash screen arrives. So this is the best screen, best activity, going to use the location listener class. So when I navigate to home screen, I'm going to use this class. Only I need to this is passing the context of this class. So now you can see, now I call the class, and whenever I call the class from the splash screen, it automatically enable and running the service. So now my app location service class is implemented and going to use. So now I'm going to check my latitude here. I'm going to debug my app here and check for the latitude and the longitude. So I'm going to debug the app and click on the debug button and then press OK. So I'm going to check that if I'm getting my lat long currently or not. So now it's installed successfully and asking for the location service. I'm pressing OK here and get back to the app. Now it's going for, I also changed little bit the on activity result from the previous video. As you can see that there is a missing if condition, so I add the request code. It doesn't change much your functionality, but it will check the request GPS is condition what you are searching for. So if its request code is GPS, then it will result OK or cancel. So now it's going for result OK and navigating to home screen. So now debugger is going to launch my location service class. So now you can see that in the app location service class, now I get my latitude here, you can see, and also the longitude when this line is compiled. So I get my latitude and longitude now, and so you can see that our purpose of getting latitude and longitude is done. And now we are going to use, now I'm going to use this class as our home class but changing its view. So I continue in the next video and tell you about how we are going to create the screen of our weather app, which is the main screen or the main application class, Java class of our app. Like this way I'm going to tell you how we are going to implement this weather using the API and using the toolbar and everything here.